very good evening. Uh, so this is our webinar from Billion Careers HR Next series, and which is 8 practical tips that will work in 2022 for employee retention. This is our third webinar from this series. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Neha. I'm your host for today, and I work as a marketing manager in Billion Careers. The key speaker of today's webinar is Mr. Jayesh Chandy. He is CHRO at Connect Business um, Solutions Limited, which is one of the India's largest domestic BPM organization with the employee strength of 42K plus. He has 27 plus years of experience in areas of human resources, total quality management, and IT management. By education, he is a BTech in Electronics and Communication and MTech in Management Studies from Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore. Jace started his career with Taj Group of Hotels and then joined Mindtree in his early days, and later headed the HR functions for entities in Madura Fashion Lifestyle, which is a part of Aditya Birla Group, and ClearTrip.com. So, we will keep the webinar very informative and interactive for all of you. We will also do a Q&A session at the end of the webinar. We will keep some time dedicated for it. So feel free to drop your questions in the Q&A box. And yes, so without further ado, let's start and hear from Mr. Jace. So over to you, Jace.
Thank you, Neha, and thank you to Billion and for this opportunity. I think it's an honor, it's a privilege to be part of this webinar, sharing experiences, sharing learning with people, and I would say fellow HR professionals. So it's good to hear interact with you. So that's something I want to start off. And having said that, there is no silver bullet nor a magic potion that will solve employee retention, employee engagement, right? If that was there and we had cracked that problem, maybe you and I would not have had jobs, right? We are there because solutions need to be customized. It's dependent on the business context. It's dependent on the organization, the structure, the leadership, kind of background of people, the environment in which it is operating, so many other factors, and hence it needs a lot of customization. So that's where this whole thing becomes very personalized and individual. So what I will try and do is give you 7-8 very basic stuff. I'm sure when you look back at it, it may look very simple. And you would have said this is common sense, but that's something which is, I think, slightly missing in the corporate world. We try to do a lot of big things, attempt to do a lot of big things, forgetting a lot of simple stuff. So that's what I want to kind of focus on. So the first tip that I would say is get back to basics. Okay. I think we need to make sure that the job that we are supposed to do, we do a decent thing on that. And starting from, if I were to take from the employee life cycle, if I exclude the recruitment, which probably is not part of the scheme of things today, if we are looking at employee engagement. So if we start from day one, from the day the person joins, a warm welcome to a good induction, making sure the person meets all the relevant people, and then getting all the basic stuff, the infrastructure, the workplace, the desktop or laptop, an ID card, and all the insurance related benefits and the cards or information about that. I think if we don't make sure those things are done, it's going to be, you're going to get setback from day one, right? All of us will remember in our company, day one of our companies, whichever companies we started with, or if you had multiple day ones, we will remember the day one. We remember typically the last working day, right? And in between, during the life cycle, the few very good days, the few not so good days, but definitely all of us will remember day one. So if you don't ensure that your day one experience is not great, it's going to be a challenge. That sets the context to the entire experience that the person has in his tenure in that organization. It's very, very simple things like making sure on day one or in the first few days, the person has a buddy, because when a person doesn't know he or she has come into a new organization, doesn't know where to go for lunch, where to pick up something. So if you don't give him that companionship in the first few days, the person gets lost, and then we'll end up picking up all the bad experiences, and that becomes a reference point to the entire employee experience that the person has. So make sure that we do the initial things, all the basic stuff, right? The entire thing in the life cycle, things like we all been taught in as part of personal management or basics of human resource management. If you get those things right, and I'm not talking about anything hi-fi, basics and basic processes. Having performance discussions, making sure that the person gets regular feedback on how he or she is doing, and working with the person in terms of career, having those career discussions. First payroll, making sure everything goes well. People are anxious, people are concerned when in initial days things don't work. So, and then make sure during the entire life cycle, all basic stuff is taken care. So that's what I would say. One of the most important thing to have a very engaged workforce. Now, people would want everything working for them. So if you can get that thing, if they have a request for a service, a benefit, and make sure that it's delivered within the time that has been committed to. So most of the services we will have it at 6 hours, 12 hours, 24 hours, 1 working day, 2 working days. Just make sure that that is done. That's, I think, the fundamental thing to this thing. And that's, I think, hygiene. But sometimes what happens is in the process of trying to do big things, we forget some of these basics. The second tip that I would say is try to keep things simple. Okay, we tend to have this feeling that we want to intellectualize, we want to do something very, very complicated. People want simplicity. Processes, practices, it should be so simple that anybody is able to understand those processes. It should be very simple and intuitive. None of us have been taught how to use Gmail or a Facebook or an Instagram. There's no, go and search for a user manual for any of these applications. You will not find one. But all of us extensively use it, and we don't have a trouble using. But you tell them to use the HRMS system in our organization, the PMS process in the organization, and you will need to send a 20-page screenshot PPT with workflows and all that. That's when it becomes. So we tend to make things very, very complicated. See, the front end has to be very, very simple. So the experience that the employee has using an application, using a service should be very, very simple, which would require that you may have to do a lot of thinking about how to make it simple. Making simple is not easy. You will need to think what is the most efficient way of doing it. How can you personalize? How can you make sure that for each person the screen is what is relevant? Now, as a manager, the person sees a screen where he or she needs to approve leave is very different from the screen that the person sees when the person has to apply leave. So that he doesn't need to think about, now I'm a manager, I need to click on this, and this is where I get to see it. Whereas when he opens it, he should be able to see that. in an organization, you will find people like, at various levels, various educational background, various cultural background, speak very different languages, their own experiences. Some of them would have worked in large, mature organizations. Some people who have worked in smaller organizations, worked in organizations that don't have systems and processes. So your processes, your practices, your systems should meet the requirements of all these people. Only then it will work. So that's, I would say, tip number 2. Keep it as simple as possible. Now, to give you an example, I'll give you examples. Some of their, I probably failed, I made mistakes, and learn from that, and so that you can also learn from some of these things and prevent making those mistakes. Competency mapping was, for many years has been one big agenda item or a process or a practice that every HR person wants to implement. Now we thought we will make, we created a huge framework, defined everything, skills and levels and assessments, and made it such a complicated stuff that when we launched it, nobody used it because people felt it is very, very difficult. It didn't make much of sense. And it was a huge disaster in that sense when we launched it the first time. And then next year we learned from some of these things and we simplified it, and then it became the most important thing in the organization. Everybody felt that that is how I can get myself assessed. I can ask my supervisor or my manager saying that, okay, this is where my skill set are. How do I go to the next level? Where is the gap? What are the things that I need to do? In a very, very simple manner, it could help. See, it may not be very, very scientific sometimes, right? It needs to give you a directional input. We do surveys, right, as part of our thing to assess people, what's happening. And again, in surveys, sometimes to get too much of details, we go and put 100, 150 questions, right? If we want to find out how the canteen is or a cafeteria is, we'll say, how's the food there? Is the quality of food better? Is the cleaning better? So you ask 10, 15 questions about the cafeteria. And then over the entire survey turns out to be 100 question instrument. And then what happens is the person who is filling the survey, after 5, 10, 15 questions, the person loses interest and starts picking whatever he or she feels, right? It will be either all 5s or all 4s or all 3s. You lost the game plot there. Whereas if you have a simpler questionnaire, 10, 15, 20 questions, you get the essence of it. You want to get to know whether your cafeteria is good, is your certain practice is good or bad. And once you know that, okay, this is not meeting your expectation, then you can do a focus group, deep dive into that, only that specific area, which then helps you figure out those things. Otherwise, what happens after 100 questions, you still don't know which are the big ticket item, which are the crucial ones, which are the most important one. You'll end up into a situation like that. So that's where I think making it simple becomes very, very critical. The third tip, this is all what we are supposed to live, right? Connect with employees. And post-pandemic, I think people are very, very keen to interact, and we see this both at an employee side and even at a client side. So, I mean, most of the clients, customers, are now tired and fed up of interacting with people or brands or products in an online form. They want to meet people. They want to interact with people. HR folks has to be on the floor. They need to be on the shop floor. They need to be on the interacting with you. You can't sit out of cabins in the HR bay or in your department and trying to do things. You will never be able to do the best, right? Employees are not going to engage with you and will not see the connection with you. You need to build personal connect with employees. You need to know them as much as possible at a personal level. They need to become your trusted You need to become their trusted advisor. They need to open up to you. They need to reach out to you whenever they have problems. You should be the crying shoulder. You should become the eyes and ears for them. Genuinely empathize with them, right? And you need to build trust with them, build that connect. That will only happen if they see you around, they meet you regularly, and that interaction happens. Very, very important part here is that whole concept of dignity of work, right? The moment you work with them, you are involved with them, and you appreciate what they are doing, they will also connect with you. When I started my career many, many years back, as part of when I joined my corporate career, one of the things, and I joined Taj Hotels, and the first 30, 45 days, I didn't do anything HR, right? I spent my time in the operations, in the various departments, in the food and food production, food and beverage service, in the housekeeping, in the laundry, front office. So, and that gave me that experience and understanding of what happens, and appreciate the kind of work that they do. Spend time with them, work with them. As a fresher, I could do mistakes, and nobody was even expected, and nobody expected me to deliver great quality work, right? Because I'm not a trained hotel professional. I was an HR background guy. So if I do a mistake, they were okay. But in the process, I learned. I made good friends. I understood what they are going through. So that's something which if you, as part of your process, make sure that you learn those nuances, spend time with people, and then they will automatically look up to you. They'll reach out to you because they know that this is the person that understands my pain, understands the kind of work that I do, and will be able to share. And once you are able to connect with them, then you'll be able to help the person solve any problem, right? The person is going through any personal or organizational problems. You can find solutions. And till many times, what happens is we come to know that the person didn't had a problem either with the supervisor, either with the work, only when the person puts in his papers. And typically, once a person decides, it's very, very difficult to make the person change his mind. And even if you're able to, it's a very short-term measure. So that's the tip number 3. This is again a thing which I see a lot of organizations don't really put efforts. We believe that we are good, and if people will know us, we don't put any effort to talk about the company. I think very, very important to really make sure people know what the organization, what is good in the organization. So and engage with people here. So like what we in my current organization we do is in all the operational processes, we have identified people who are HR ambassadors. So they are the people who actually help us implement processes and run activities for them. So they bring in the local flavor to it. They bring in what those people are looking forward in their peer people, their team members. And they help us and give that input as well, saying that, okay, these are things that we want to do. This is what is challenging right now. So let's do something like this. They give inputs when we want to look at change of policies or processes. So build those things, and then it is not anymore HR activity. It is an people activity. And our job is to make sure that processes and practices are implemented, right? Rather than holding on saying that this is the HR process and only HR will implement it. As long as the process or a practice is implemented, it is giving its results, I think we should be all very happy about it. So that's something which you should do. The good practices you could share these with families as well. We have tried this with good success, where when a person gets promoted, you send a letter to the family member. It could be the spouse, it could be the parent, and that your son or daughter, your husband or wife has been promoted in the organization. We look, it's been doing that. It gives a very good feeling to the family member as well. So they also see what's the organization. They will also start looking at a little more about the organization, and that builds this thing. So the idea is that you have multiple connects with the people. Celebrate wins, be it small, big, achievements of people, and these are all opportunities for you to talk about some of the good things, and in a very, very subtle manner you will highlight good practices in the organization. You don't, I'm not saying by this that you should go around putting posters saying these are the best practices, and then that may not have it, but you have to subtly push these things. So newsletters can be there. There could be communication going around in the organization. Once in a while, it talks about that, we did this. This is what we have achieved. So people get to know, and those are things that they will be happy about, because every person will want to work in an organization which has got good practices, good processes. Because he or she, when they talk to their peers, their friends, classmates, batchmates, they would like to boast about the company that they work in, right? And that is where they stay engaged with the company. They stay there. You will have retention, because in a social gathering, if two other friends says that in my company this happens and that happens, and you don't have anything to talk about, what will happen is it takes down your morale, and you feel bad about it. You say, maybe I'm not working in a great company. That's when that person starts looking out, right? If you have enough things you've communicated to the person feels good when talking about his or her company to a family member or a colleague, a former colleague or a classmate or a batchmate. I think it makes a huge impact. The next thing is, again, there's, as I was saying, right, there's no silver bullet for employee engagement and employee retention, but at the same time, there's also no one size fits all kind of thing. You will, there are all shades of people in the organization, right? There are people from different domains, there are different skill sets, different backgrounds. They come from very different socioeconomic backgrounds. So a program cannot meet all the requirements. There will be people who like different things, right? There are people who like outdoor games. All of a sudden you tell them to start playing chess or carom board, they may not like it, right? Or there are people who like indoor sports, or people who like computer sports, and you tell them to play football. So that's, I think, where it becomes very, very important and critical that you try building practices and programs which meets a specific group of people. You should not worry too much about whether when you ran a program how much was the participation from an overall perspective. Out of the total headcount of the organization, only 10% participated. That is, while it's a measure, I don't think you should worry too much about. You should worry about is that the 10% people who attended, among them, what was their satisfaction level? Did they really enjoy? Did they find value in that process? So you keep doing multiple things for different people. And another example that I can talk about is performance management, right? You can have a framework for a performance. I think this is broadly how it is done. You have objectives, you have self-assessments, a review by the immediate supervisor, and a further review by manager's manager, and based on that you have a rating scale, whatever. Now different people can take different approaches. There could be some groups in the organization which may do every month of performance review, and it could be purely based on the metrics that they are supposed to deliver. To some people, it could be a quarterly review. It could be done in a different way for a different set of people. So, but end of it, you're still looking at, okay, by year end, you're consolidating all that thing and everybody is getting rated into the same rating scale or a similar structure that serves the purpose. Instead of saying that, no, this is our standard process, everybody needs to follow exactly this. That sometimes doesn't work. And personally, I've seen that it most of the time doesn't work. You need to believe in having framework structure and see how you can customize it for specific groups. The next one, I would have spoken about this in the earlier this thing in terms of having multiple connect points, right? So this is again one very crucial thing that we need to do. We need to ensure that every employee has multiple reasons to stay put in the organization. People stay in the organization either because it's a great learning place. If they have a great supervisor, they may have a great manager's manager. They may have great connect with a few people in a different department. They have they're part of the football team or the cricket team in the organization. They enjoy the training programs in the organization. They like the career growth that has been happening. So if you have multiple reasons for this thing, so it's quite possible that under a very busy, strenuous, taxing environment, one of these strings may break, right? You may the person may not like the immediate supervisor, for example, but the person continues to stay put in the organization because he or she knows that there are so many other things that are okay, but I'll live with a problem with my. It could be similarly, the person say, maybe I don't get the best salary here, but there are a lot of other benefits that I get. And I have a very caring supervisor or a very caring HR department, or whenever I need something, my facilities or admin team is available to help out. That is what sometimes matters, right? People also don't take decisions on just one thing. They look at things in a very holistic manner. So it's very critical to make sure that you have those multiple connects or multiple reasons of engagement for an individual. They need to be aligned the thing, so that even if one or two breaks, you still have some other reason to hold on to the person. A person stays put in the organization. So that's the tip number 6. Tip number 7, I think this is our fiduciary responsibility. We need to be fair and consistent in dealing with people, right? We need to always have people at the heart of our solution. We are supposed to be the advocates for the organization. People need to see that we will fight for them. Every decision, everything that we do, we should be the central point. The people should be the central point of any of those things. So if you do that, I think people will enjoy. People will love working with you, working with the organization. We need to be very transparent in our decisions and share how a particular decision was taken, what was the basis, and you will be very surprised how people will react to things. And I've had multiple cases. We go through business cycles, ups and downs, economy goes topsy-turvy, and many times we have to take tough decisions, be it salary cuts or deciding to let go people and that. But when you do that with empathy, do that with clarity and fairness, we have had cases where we wanted to do a salary cut for a certain set of people, and another set of people said that let's not do this for these set of people, but we are willing to take an extra cut to ensure that at this point in time when things are bad, we are able to retain people. So that's what I'm saying. You will be very surprised the way people tag along and work with you when situations are tough, right? But all that is because you've been fair, you've been consistent. These things don't happen overnight, right? Don't expect that tomorrow if you open up and tell people that this is how I took a decision, and don't expect that everybody is going to turn around and say that, okay, this is how I can solve it. It will happen, but it will happen over a period of time. So you need to be consistent. That's why that whole consistency becomes very, very critical. They need to see that, okay, I can trust these people, they're fair, they will do what is right, and trust and faith builds over time. It doesn't happen in one go. So that's something which I would say is, again, as HR professionals, this is very core to us. We need to ensure that our employees, our people get a fair deal. They are not shortchanged in any way, or because there will be business pressures, there will be financial pressure, there will be customer related pressures. Sometimes what happens is, there's a senior person involved and you sacrifice a junior person. These are things, while we say that we it's confidential, nobody will know, but the corporate grapevine or the organizational internal communication systems are so very porous that everybody will get to know, except that we will be thinking that nobody knows in the organization. And these things actually bring down the image of the function or the people involved in that, and they will say that, yeah, these people cannot be trusted, or I don't think they will always be thinking about me. You have to make sure that every employee in the organization feels that HR is doing what is the right thing. Lastly, I think, again, a quality that I very strongly believe every HR professional should have. They should be humble. They need to, we have a very, very delicate situation. We are seen as management, we are seen as employee advocates, right? And very easily we shift towards being seen as management, and that is where it starts distancing us from employees, and employees will never share things with you. They will say that, yeah, they are just running the show for us, right? So that sense of entitlement or power is something that we should never show to our people, right? It should be a very, very collaborative effort with people, involve them in the entire thing, feel good, make them part of the whole thing. See, again, many times it is very, very simple things that you do for them. It doesn't take too much of effort. Be part of their good moments and bad moments. Making a visit to somebody who's going through some pain. That trip may not cost you much, or may not take much of effort, but for the lifetime, that person will be grateful to you, right? And we sometimes think these are all very, very trivial things, but many of these smaller things are very, very important to people, because for them, somebody really cared for them, right? That's what I would say makes the function, makes people, and makes the culture of the organization. If I were to sum it, right, these 7-8 tips kind of builds a culture in the organization wherein person feels good to stay put, stay longer in the organization, stay engaged in the organization, build a career with themselves in the organization. That's what actually makes a huge thing. And I would say, post-pandemic, some of these things have become very, very more prominent. Things like communication, being humble, having simple systems, because nobody wants to spend too much of time clicking on multiple buttons and all that. Everybody has enough of other things to do online, that the last thing that they would want to do is in the office also do something very, very complicated, right? So if you can build that culture around, build that environment, build something which makes them feel important, makes them feel good, I'm sure they will stay longer. And that's what I would sum it up as these simple 8 tips for employee retention. So I'm kind of done. I'm willing to take as many questions I can take. And over to you. Yeah.
Sure, Jess. So thank you so much, Jess. Very, very well explained. You have like explained everything very nicely. So some of the points were really informative, Jess. So yeah. So now we are open for question answer session. So I request everyone to put down their question in the Q&A box. So we have a couple of questions, Jess. So first question is coming from Mr. Vignesh, and he's saying, first of all, thank you for hosting this webinar. And then he's asking, what are your suggestions for engagement in a hybrid work environment? Uh, we can hear you.
Yeah, you can hear me, right? Okay, fine. No, so see, hybrid again, as I said, right, you can't have a single solution. Now, employee engagement when it comes to online virtual model, you will have to figure out some of things in terms of how do you talk to them. Now you may need probably a platform or a process by which you can interact with them. Right? In the office, like let me again give you probably from our BPO kind of thing where we have a fun Friday. So on a Friday, we take about an hour, half an hour, 45 minutes. We get all the people to do something very informal, have some fun activities. It helps them bond with each other. Now, when people are working from a remote location, you can't have that. But then, can you do something where you create the same kind of fun element? Maybe it could be a fun. The same could be maybe an online Antakshri or an online gaming or something where you still do that kind of thing. So I think you'll need to figure out in the context the kind of people that you are working with. How do you engage with them in an online format? And you can't really move a process which is offline as is into an online because that may not work. You may have to think little out of box saying that what will work in that environment. So that's it. So do activities for people who are working in the office, a different set of things, and for people who are working in the at their homes in remote locations, a different set of things. I think it's also critical to engage with people who are remotely because they are lost, right? They don't see the organization, they don't get a sense of the organization, and more so if they have never joined your organization physically ever, right? They will never get the touch and feel of the organization. So if you have to make that extra effort to engage with those people, feel them, feel the organization, be part of the organization, feel the importance. Otherwise, it will not work for them. So I would say, yeah, and again, different solutions for different people, different industry, it may work differently. So that's how we will have
I
to.
hope that answered Vignesh's questions. So anyone else have any question? Please feel free to put down your questions. So in case, no worries, in case anyone have any more questions, they can always write to us on our email ID, like which is marketing@billioncareers.in. You can always reach out to us and we will be more than happy to answer any question. You can mention that you want to hear from Jace or you want to uh, know anything about any specific topic from any specific industry expert. We are happy to take it. And also, if you have any suggestion for our future webinar, if you have any topics in mind, you can also suggest us that. We are open for those as well. So yeah, so I will say like it was very amazing and great to have all the audiences today. So thank you so much for your time and to attend this webinar. And uh, um, uh, we are like happy to we wish that you all will come in our future webinar too. So thank you so much, and once again thank you so much, Jace, for giving us
Pleasure.
time today and conducting such an informative webinar. Thank you so much.